The chamber was silent except for the hum of anti-gravity generators. Ambassador Jakara stood at the center of the circular room, his scales reflecting the blue emergency lights. Around him, 47 species of the Galactic Council waited. None of them spoke. They all knew why they were here. "The quarantine stations are gone," Jakara said finally. His voice was steady, but his tail twitched nervously. All 12 of them. No distress signals, no wreckage, just gone. High Coordinator Melthos shifted in her crystal body. Light bent through her form as she processed this information. "When did we lose contact?" "6 days ago," Jakara replied. "We sent scout ships 3 days ago. They haven't returned." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Krillian delegate, a being made of swirling gas, spoke in a voice like wind through caves. "What about long-range sensors?" Jakara touched a control panel. A hologram appeared above the council floor. It showed a map of the galaxy. At the edge was a small yellow dot labeled Sol System. Around it was a red circle marking the quarantine zone. "This is what we see," Jakara said. The hologram changed. Now there were hundreds of bright points moving away from Sol. They looked like stars, but they were moving far too fast. "Energy signatures," Melthos said quietly. "Fusion reactors. Hundreds of them." 847, Jakara corrected. "And they're heading toward our space." The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate military action. Others wanted to flee. A few sat frozen in shock. Jakara raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes before the noise died down. "We need to discuss what this means," he said. 200 years ago, we discovered humans during what they called their atomic age. We watched them for 5 years. What we saw," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "what we saw frightened us. They were in the middle of a Cold War. 2 human nations pointed thousands of nuclear weapons at each other. They had enough firepower to destroy their entire planet 10 times over. They wrote stories about ending their own world. They seemed to enjoy the idea. They were animals," one delegate spat. "Predators killing each other for sport." "Perhaps," Jakara agreed. "But they were also incredibly dangerous, so the council voted to quarantine them. We placed monitoring stations around their system. We jammed their radio signals so they couldn't detect us. We decided to check on them every 100 years to see if they had survived." Melthos glowed brighter. "And now the monitoring stations are destroyed. Did the humans destroy themselves? Did their weapons finally consume them?" "That's what we hoped," Jakara admitted. "But those energy signatures suggest otherwise." He pulled up another file. Images appeared in the hologram. Pictures of humans throughout their history, fighting in trenches, dropping bombs from aircraft, soldiers storming beaches while their friends died around them. "Look at these images," Jakara said. "In their first World War, millions died. They used poison gas, machine guns, artillery that turned battlefields into hellscapes. Any reasonable species would have stopped. Humans fought for 4 years. He changed the image. 20 years later, they did it again. This time, 60 million died. Cities burned. They invented weapons that could vaporize entire populations, and still they fought. They never surrendered even when their cities were rubble." "What's your point?" the Krillian delegate asked. "My point is that humans don't stop," Jakara said. "They don't give up. They fight until they win, or until they're extinct. That's why we quarantined them. We thought isolation would either calm them down or they would destroy themselves." "Clearly we were wrong," Melthos said. A younger delegate, a Vaxian like Jakara, raised his hand. "What if they're not hostile? What if they just want to meet us?" Several older delegates laughed. Jakara didn't. "Then why destroy our monitoring stations?" he asked. "Why not try to communicate first?" The young delegate had no answer. Jakara continued. "I've spent the last 6 days reviewing everything we know about humans. Their psychology, their culture, their approach to problems. And I'm worried." "About what?" Melthos asked. "They solve every problem with violence," Jakara explained. "When they had diseases, they declared war on them. When they had hunger, they fought against it. When they explored their planet, they conquered it. They even talk about fighting against time, against age, against death itself. Everything is a battle to them." He pulled up more files. Human literature, movies, games, all of them filled with conflict and war. "They love it," he said quietly. "Fighting is in their nature. It's how they think, how they organize themselves. They make games about war. They write songs about battles. They tell their children stories about heroes who never give up even against impossible odds. The chamber was quiet again. Several delegates looked sick. The idea of a species that glorified violence was deeply disturbing to most of them. "So what do we do?" someone asked. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared. Red lights flooded the chamber. A mechanical voice announced, "Emergency docking procedure initiated. Medical teams to Bay 7. The delegates rushed to the observation windows. In the docking bay below, a small ship was being pulled inside by tractor beams. It was a Vaxian scout vessel, but it barely looked like one anymore. The hull was melted in places. Whole sections were missing. Atmosphere vented from a dozen breaches. "That's one of our scout ships," Jakara said. "The ones we sent to Sol." Medical teams in environmental suits swarmed the ship as soon as it was inside. They cut through the airlock with plasma torches. Smoke poured out. 3 bodies were carried away on stretchers. Only one was moving. 20 minutes later, the survivor was brought into the council chamber. Captain Velkoth looked terrible. His scales were burned. One arm hung uselessly at his side. He could barely stand even with 2 medics supporting him. "What happened?" Jakara demanded. Velkoth's eyes were wide with fear. "We jumped into the Sol system," he said. His voice was hoarse. "Our orders were to observe and report. We stayed at maximum sensor range. We didn't even enter the inner system." "And?" Malthus prompted. "They knew we were there," Velkoth said. "Immediately. Our stealth systems meant nothing. We detected a ship launching from their 4th planet. Mars. It reached us in 6 minutes. 6 minutes across a distance that should have taken hours." The delegates exchanged worried looks. "They hailed us," Velkoth continued, "in our own language. Perfect Vaxian. The human asked if we were from the Galactic Council. I didn't answer. I was too shocked. Then she said something I'll never forget." "What did she say?" Jakara asked. Velkoth looked around the chamber. "She said, 'Tell your council we're done being prisoners. Tell them we're coming. Tell them we come in peace, but we won't be caged anymore.' Then she fired a warning shot across our bow. It missed by less than 10 meters. We jumped out immediately. 'Why would they let you go?' someone asked. 'Why not destroy you?' 'Because they wanted us to deliver the message,' Velkoth said. 'Don't you see? They could have killed us easily, but they let us live. They wanted us to come here, to tell you what's coming.'" Jakara felt cold. "They're not asking permission," he said. "They're making a statement." Velkoth nodded weakly. Then he looked directly at Jakara. "Ambassador, there's something else. When I saw their planet through our sensors, Mars was covered in construction. Orbital shipyards. Thousands of them. And Earth," he swallowed hard. "Earth was surrounded by a ring of stations. Defense platforms. They've turned their entire system into a fortress. How long would that take?" Malthus asked. "Decades," Velkoth said. "Maybe a century. They've been building this for a very long time." The chamber erupted again, but Jakara barely heard it. He stared at the hologram showing those 847 ships moving toward Council space. Humans had spent 200 years preparing. While the Council watched and waited, humans had been planning their response. They weren't victims anymore. They weren't prisoners. They were coming, and the galaxy wasn't ready. The Threshold 7 system sat on the edge of Council space like a warning sign. It was the last system before the Great Dark between spiral arms. Beyond it was nothing but empty space for thousands of light years. It was the perfect place to meet an unknown threat. Fleet Commander Jakara stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vigilance. Around his ship, 200 Council warships waited in formation. They represented the military might of 47 civilizations. Every ship was armed and ready. "It's supposed to be a diplomatic meeting," his second officer said nervously. "Why does it feel like we're preparing for war?" "Because we are," Jakara replied honestly. "We just hope we don't have to fight." The council had debated for 3 days after Captain Velkoth delivered his message. Some wanted to attack humans immediately. Others wanted to run and hide. In the end, they decided on this meeting. A show of strength combined with an offer of dialogue. High Coordinator Malthus's voice crackled over the communication channel. "All ships maintain formation. Weapons charged but not locked. Remember, we want to appear strong but not aggressive." Jakara almost laughed. 200 warships wasn't aggressive? But he understood the logic. Humans respected strength, or at least that's what the council hoped. "Contact," the sensor officer announced. FTL signatures detected? Multiple contacts. Lots of them. How many? Shakara asked. The sensor officer's voice shook. 847, sir. Exactly as predicted. The view screen changed. Space itself seemed to tear open. Ships emerged from what looked like tiers in reality. They didn't use the standard hyperlanes that everyone else relied on. They simply appeared as if stepping through doorways. Shakara stared at the human fleet. The ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. No graceful curves, no artistic designs. They were blocky and efficient, covered in overlapping plates that looked like scales or scars. Each ship bristled with weapons, railguns, missile pods, energy cannons, even a few weapons that sensors couldn't identify. But what struck him most was how organized they were. 800 ships moving as one. Perfect formation. Perfect timing. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They're not pointing weapons at us, his tactical officer noted with surprise. It was true. The human ships faced the Council fleet, but their weapons remained cold. Waiting. Incoming transmission, the communications officer said. They're broadcasting on 23 different frequencies. In 23 languages. Shakara felt his scales prickle. They know all our languages? Apparently, sir. Put it through. A human face appeared on screen. She was female with dark hair and warm brown skin. Her eyes were calm but alert. The text on screen identified her as Captain Maria Chen of the TCSV Indomitable. Greetings, Galactic Council Fleet, she said in perfect Vaxian. I am Captain Chen representing the Terran Commonwealth. We come in peace and hope to speak with your leaders. Her voice was pleasant, professional. But Shakara noticed something else. Behind her on the bridge, human crew members worked calmly. No panic, no fear. They acted like meeting an alien fleet was just another day at work. Shakara activated his own communication. I am Fleet Commander Shakara of the Vaxian Defense Force, speaking for the Galactic Council. We welcome you to Council Space, Captain Chen smiled slightly. Thank you, Commander. We appreciate the welcome. And the impressive fleet. 200 ships is quite a greeting party. Was she mocking them? Shakara couldn't tell. We felt it appropriate given the circumstances, he said carefully. You destroyed our monitoring stations. We dismantled them, Chen corrected. We were very careful not to harm anyone. All personnel were evacuated before we began. We even left their personal belongings in escape pods nearby. Shakara checked his data files. She was right. All station personnel had been recovered safely. Why dismantle them at all? Because the quarantine is over, a new voice said. Another human appeared on screen next to Captain Chen. He was older, with dark skin and gray hair. The text identified him as Admiral James Okonkwo, commander of the entire Terran Armada. For 200 years you've kept us locked in our own system, Admiral Okonkwo said. His voice was deep and steady. You watched us, studied us, judged us, all without ever speaking to us. That ends today. You were dangerous, Shakara said. You still are. We counted your weapons. We saw your wars. Yes, we were violent, Okonkwo agreed. We fought terrible wars. We made horrible mistakes, but that was then. We've changed, have you? Malthos's voice cut in. You arrive with 800 warships. You speak of peace while showing us your teeth. Admiral Okonkwo leaned forward. High Coordinator, let me be clear. We don't want war. We want to join the galaxy as equals. But we learned something important from our history. Peace only works when backed by strength. The weak are conquered, the strong are respected. So you threaten us? Shakara asked. No, Captain Chen said. We're showing you that threatening us would be unwise. There's a difference, Shakara felt a chill. These humans understood power politics better than most council members. We want to show you something, Admiral Okonkwo continued. With your permission, we'd like to transmit data files. Our history. Our culture. What we've accomplished in the last 200 years. And if we refuse? Malthos asked. Then we'll wait, Okonkwo said simply. We've waited 2 centuries. We can wait a bit longer. But understand this, we're not leaving. We're not going back into our cage. This conversation will happen one way or another. We'd prefer it to be peaceful. Shakara looked at his tactical display. The human ships still hadn't powered their weapons. They just sat there, waiting, patient. That patience was somehow more frightening than any threat. Send your files, Malthos said finally. We'll review them. Thank you, Captain Chen said. Transmitting now. Data began flooding council networks. Shikara pulled up some files on his personal screen. What he saw shocked him. Images of Earth transformed, cities of glass and green spaces, orbital stations surrounding the planet like a crown, Mars covered in domed colonies and terraforming equipment. But there were other images too. Humans working together, different races and cultures united, hospitals, schools, research stations. They had achieved things the Council thought impossible for such a young species. This is propaganda, someone muttered over the command channel, showing us only their best. But Shikara wasn't so sure. He pulled up a file labeled The Revelation Wars. It showed human conflict from 2025 to 2028, battles between nations, cities damaged, thousands dead. The humans weren't hiding their violence. They were being honest about it. The file explained how humans had reacted to discovering they were being watched. Initial paranoia, then anger, then brief wars as old tensions exploded. But then something changed. Humans realized they were proving the Council right, that they were showing the galaxy exactly what it feared most. So they stopped. Not all at once, not easily, but they stopped. They united. They decided that if the galaxy saw them as monsters, they would prove the galaxy wrong. How did they know we were watching? Shikara asked. Admiral Okonkwo answered. We didn't at first, but we noticed patterns, radio signals that never reached where they should, satellites that occasionally malfunctioned for no reason, strange readings at the edge of our system. We're very good at seeing patterns, Commander. It's one of our strengths. Once we knew you were there, we started watching back. Watching back? Melthos asked sharply. Explain. Captain Chen took over. Your monitoring stations broadcast data. Encrypted, yes, but not impossible to intercept. We couldn't break your codes, but we could follow your ships when they left. We built stealth probes. Very small, very quiet. Over the decades, we mapped your territory, learned your languages, studied your cultures. The Council delegates were silent. The implications were staggering. While they had watched humans, humans had been watching them. You've been in our space, Shikara demanded. For how long? 70 years, Okonkwo said calmly. We started small, single probes, then more sophisticated ones. We never interfered, never revealed ourselves. We just watched and learned. Like you did to us, Shikara felt dizzy. 70 years. Humans had been studying the Council for 70 years, and no one had noticed. Why reveal this now? Melthos asked. Because secrets make poor foundations for diplomacy, Admiral Okonkwo said. We want to start our relationship honestly. Yes, we've spied on you. Yes, we've built a massive military. Yes, we're showing up at your border with overwhelming force. But we're being honest about all of it. That has to count for something. Shikara looked at the human fleet again. 800 ships, all of them perfectly positioned. All of them clearly built by a species that understood warfare intimately. But none of them had fired a shot. What do you want? He asked finally. Captain Chen smiled. What we've always wanted, Commander. To be free, to explore, to meet our neighbors, to trade and talk and learn. We want to join the galaxy. And if we say no? Shikara asked. The smile faded. Then we'll be disappointed, she said. But we won't go away. We'll stay here at your border and wait for you to change your minds. However long it takes, Admiral Okonkwo added. We're very patient when we need to be, and very persistent. It's another one of our strengths. Shikara believed him. These weren't the primitive, violent humans the Council had quarantined 2 centuries ago. These were humans who had learned patience. Who had the Galactic Council chamber had never been this crowded. Every delegate was present. No one wanted to miss this. Ambassador Shikara sat in his designated seat, watching as a human shuttle docked with the station. They were letting humans aboard, onto Concordia Prime itself. Some delegates had protested. Many were terrified. But High Coordinator Melthos had made the decision. If they were going to judge humanity, they needed to hear from humans directly. The chamber doors opened. 3 humans walked in. Shikara studied them carefully. The first was Admiral Okonkwo, who he had spoken with at Threshold 7. The second was Captain Chen. The third was a woman he didn't recognize. She was small, with Asian features and black hair tied back neatly. She carried a datapad and walked with quiet confidence. Members of the Galactic Council, Admiral Okonkwo said, his voice echoing in the chamber. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. This is Dr. Sarah Kim, our xenoanthropologist. She has prepared something we call the Humanity Dossier. It contains everything you need to know about us. Our history, our culture, our progress. We hide nothing. Dr. Kim stepped forward. She touched her datapad and a massive hologram appeared above the council floor. It showed Earth, blue and green and beautiful. Home, Dr. Kim said simply. This is where we come from. And before we go any further, I want to address what everyone is thinking. You're afraid of us. That's okay. We understand fear. We felt it ourselves. She changed the image. Now it showed a collage of human history. Wars, weapons, destruction. Yes, we were violent, Dr. Kim continued. This is not propaganda. This is truth. For thousands of years we fought each other. We invented terrible weapons. We caused suffering. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. The delegates murmured. At least the humans were being honest. But here's what you need to understand, Dr. Kim said. She changed the image again. Now it showed a timeline. 203 years ago, something happened that changed everything. We detected your monitoring stations. It took us 5 years to be certain, but we figured it out. We were being watched. Shikara shifted uncomfortably. He had been young when the quarantine started. He remembered the debates, the fear, the decision to isolate humanity. Our reaction was complicated, Dr. Kim said. The hologram showed news broadcasts, panic, protests, military buildups. Some nations accused each other of faking the evidence. Some wanted to try to communicate. Some wanted to prepare for invasion. For 3 years, tensions rose. Then in 2028, war broke out. The hologram showed battles, cities burning, soldiers fighting. But compared to earlier wars, it was smaller, more controlled. The Revelation Wars lasted only 7 months, Dr. Kim explained. 32,000 people died. That sounds like a lot, but for us it was incredibly small. Why? Because in the middle of fighting, we realized something. We were proving you right. We were showing the galaxy exactly why you quarantined us. She paused, letting that sink in. So we stopped, Dr. Kim said. Not easily. Not peacefully at first. But we stopped. Leaders from every nation met in Geneva. They asked themselves a question. Did we want to be the monsters the galaxy thought we were? Or did we want to be better? The hologram changed. It showed a massive gathering. Thousands of humans from every nation on Earth. This is the Geneva Assembly, Dr. Kim said. It lasted 2 years. Every nation sent representatives. Every major religion. Every significant cultural group. They argued. They fought with words instead of weapons. And slowly, painfully, they built something new. The Terran Commonwealth. The hologram showed documents, treaties, agreements, all signed by hundreds of leaders. We didn't become perfect, Dr. Kim said honestly. We still argued. We still disagreed. But we learned to do it without killing each other. We learned to compromise. We learned that being strong meant protecting everyone, not just ourselves. A Krelian delegate spoke up. You expect us to believe you simply stopped fighting? That goes against everything we know about your psychology. Dr. Kim smiled. No, we didn't stop fighting. We redirected it. Let me show you. The hologram changed again. It showed humans in environmental suits working on Mars. We declared war on our limitations. We fought to terraform Mars. Thousands worked for decades. Many died in accidents. But we kept going. That's what humans do. We fight. But we chose to fight against nature instead of each other. Another image. Humans in laboratories. We declared war on disease, cancer, genetic disorders, aging itself. We fought these enemies instead of each other. Another image. Massive ships under construction. And yes, we built weapons. We built the Armada because we knew that eventually you would come to check on us. And we wanted to be ready, not to conquer you, but to stand as equals. But why so many ships? Melthos asked. 800 warships is not a peaceful gesture. Admiral Okonkwo stepped forward. With respect, High Coordinator, we studied your history too. We know about the Vaxian subjugation wars. We know about the species that disappeared after refusing to join the Council. We know the galaxy is not always peaceful. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted denials. Others demanded to know how humans had learned these secrets. Chikara felt sick. The Vaxian subjugation wars were ancient history, classified. His people had conquered 17 species before joining the Council and embracing peace. How did humans know? Dr. Kim raised her voice. We're not here to judge you. Every species has a dark past, including us. We're here to show you that we learned from ours. Can you say the same? The chamber fell silent. You're afraid because we're predators, Dr. Kim continued. But 6 species on this council evolved as predators. You're afraid because we come from a dangerous planet. But 3 other species here come from high-gravity worlds with extreme environments. You're afraid because we fought each other, but almost every species here has fought civil wars. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of different delegates. The real reason you're afraid is because we're persistent. We don't give up, ever. When we commit to something, we see it through no matter the cost. That scares you because you can't predict us, you can't control us, and you can't make us quit. Captain Chen spoke up. We've seen what happens to species that show weakness. The Zalari asked nicely to join the council. They had no military. They were peaceful. You made them wait 50 years while you evaluated them. They became a protectorate, not full members. They still don't have voting rights. That's different, someone protested. They weren't ready for full membership. Really? Admiral Okonkwo asked. Or were they just too weak to demand it? We read your charter. It says species must demonstrate the ability to defend their own sovereignty. The Zalari couldn't do that, so they got half membership. Second-class status. Shakara knew it was true. The council respected strength. Always had. The Zalari were advanced and peaceful, but they had no military to speak of. So they remained under council protection, forever dependent. We won't make that mistake, Captain Chen said firmly. We come with ships because ships mean respect. We come with weapons because weapons mean sovereignty. We come as equals because we have the power to enforce equality. This is blackmail, a delegate accused. No, Dr. Kim said. This is diplomacy backed by strength. There's a difference. We're not threatening you. We're showing you that threatening us would be pointless. We don't want to fight, but we can if we must, and you need to understand that before we move forward. Melthos glowed brighter. You speak of peace while brandishing weapons. You claim to have changed while demonstrating your capacity for violence. How are we supposed to trust you? Dr. Kim changed the hologram one more time. It showed human colonies, schools full of young humans learning about dozens of alien cultures, hospitals where human doctors practiced xenomedicine, research stations studying council technology and improving on it. Trust is earned, Dr. Kim said. We know that. So let us earn it. Allow human doctors to work in your hospitals. Let our engineers collaborate with yours. Permit our merchants to trade in your markets. Let us prove through actions that we've changed, and if we refuse, Shakara heard himself ask. Admiral Okonkwo met his eyes. Then we wait at your border. We don't leave. We don't attack. We just wait, and while we wait, we keep building, keep growing, keep becoming stronger. Eventually, you'll have to choose. Accept us as partners or face us as rivals. We'd prefer the first option. That still sounds like a threat, Melthos said. It's reality, Captain Chen replied. We're here. We're not going away. You can work with us or against us, but you can't ignore us. Not anymore. Dr. Kim pulled up one final image. It showed young humans and young aliens playing together. The image was clearly fake, computer-generated. But the symbolism was clear. This is what we want, Dr. Kim said softly. Not conquest. Not domination. Just a place in the galaxy, a chance to learn from you and teach you, a chance to grow together instead of apart. We've spent 200 years preparing for this moment. We've unified our species. We've conquered our worst instincts. We've built a civilization worthy of the stars. She looked around the chamber. We're not perfect. We'll make mistakes. We'll sometimes be difficult. But we're here with open hands and hone. The debate had gone on for 6 days. Shakara was exhausted. The council chamber had become a battlefield of words. Some delegates wanted to accept humanity. Others refused. The votes kept changing as arguments went back and forth, then the alarms went off. Emergency transmission from Sector 9, a technician announced. Colonies under attack, multiple systems, unknown aggressors. The hologram in the center of the chamber changed. It showed a star map. Across the outer edge of council space, red markers appeared, one after another. Dozens of them. What is attacking? Melthos demanded. A new transmission came through. The image was broken and filled with static. A Lumini officer appeared, her crystal body cracked and dim. Behind her, fires burned. This is Commander Silara from Outpost 93. We are under attack by unknown forces, biomechanical entities. They're not trying to conquer. They're consuming. Everything, everyone. We need... The transmission cut off. The hologram showed the outpost's location going dark. Bring up sensor data, Shakara ordered, moving to a command console. His role as fleet commander suddenly very relevant. What he saw made his blood run cold. The attackers moved in swarms. Thousands of small ships supported by larger vessels that looked more organic than mechanical. They hit colonies with overwhelming force, stripped them of all biological matter, then moved on. The Skorath, Melthos whispered. The swarm from beyond the galactic barrier. We thought they were a myth. They're real, Shakara said grimly, and they're already through our outer defenses. According to this data, we've lost 40% of our defensive fleet in 3 days. They hit us before we even knew they were coming. Another transmission came in, this time from Admiral Kethral, commanding the Council's 3rd Fleet. His face was covered in wounds. This is Admiral Kethral. The Skorath are using weapons we've never encountered. Suicide drones, biological weapons that convert our own people into more of them. They broadcast on all frequencies showing what they do to prisoners. It's psychological warfare. Half my crew is too terrified to fight effectively. We're falling back to the Crucible system. We need reinforcements immediately. The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent. Then everyone started talking at once. Panic. Fear. Accusations about who should have seen this coming. Shakara wasn't listening. He was looking at the strategic display. The Skorath were pushing inward along a wide front. If they weren't stopped, they would reach core council worlds within weeks. We need to mobilize everything, Melthos said. Every ship, every soldier. It won't be enough, Shakara said quietly. Look at the numbers. They outnumber us 5-1, and they don't care about casualties. They just keep coming. Then what do we do? Someone demanded. Shakara looked at the star map. Then he looked at the marker showing where the human fleet waited at Threshold 7. He made a decision. We ask for help, he said. The chamber erupted again. Some delegates shouted that they would rather die than accept human aid. Others argued that they had no choice. The debate might have gone on for hours. High Coordinator Melthos raised her voice above the noise.
Enough! Fleet Commander Shakara is right.
We need help. And right now there are 800 fresh warships sitting at our border doing nothing. I'm authorizing contact with the human fleet. She opened a channel before anyone could protest. Admiral Okonkwo, this is High Coordinator Melthos. We require your assistance against an external threat. Will you help us? There was a pause. Then Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on screen. Behind him, his bridge crew was already moving with purpose. We've been monitoring your emergency broadcasts, Okonkwo said. We're already underway. We should reach the Crucible system in 6 hours. You're already moving? Shakara asked in surprise. We just called you. Captain Chen appeared next to the Admiral. We saw your fleet positions shifting. We saw the distress calls. We didn't need permission to help people who are dying. How did you get past our sensor grid? A delegate demanded. We've been inside your sensor grid for 70 years, Chen reminded them. We told you that. Your security needs work, by the way. We can help with that later. Right now, let's focus on not being eaten by space locusts. Admiral Okonkwo pulled up tactical displays. We've been studying your defensive positions. With your permission, I'd like to suggest a joint strategy. You've been studying our defenses? Melthos asked sharply. For decades, Okonkwo said without apology. It's what we do. Be grateful for it now. We know your fleet's strengths and weaknesses. We know where the Skorath are coming from, and we know how to stop them. How? Shakara asked. By fighting the way we've always fought, Captain Chen said. Together. Combined arms. Mutual support. And by being too stubborn to lose. 6 hours later, the human fleet arrived at the Crucible system. Shakara watched from his flagship as 800 human warships dropped out of FTL in perfect formation. They slotted into position alongside the battered Council fleet, without a single communication error. Human vessels in position, his tactical officer reported. They're transmitting tactical data to all Council ships. Strategic updates, threat assessments. It's more detailed than anything our own sensors provide. Shakara opened a channel to Admiral Okonkwo. You're sharing your sensor data with us? Of course, Okonkwo replied. We're allies now. Allies share information. Your ships are broadcasting on 83 different tactical channels with 17 different encryption protocols. We've linked them all into one network. Every ship in this fleet can now talk to every other ship instantly. You're welcome. Before Shakara could respond, the Skorath arrived. They came in a wave. Thousands of small ships supported by massive biomechanical cruisers. They looked like they were grown rather than built. Organic hulls covered in armor plates, weapons that looked like giant claws and teeth. "All ships engage," Admiral Kethrall ordered. The battle began. Council ships opened fire with beam weapons and missiles. The Skorath ships scattered and reformed, moving like a school of fish. Their smaller vessels launched themselves at Council ships in suicide runs. When they hit, they didn't just explode. They burrowed into hulls, releasing biological agents that tried to convert the ship's crew. Jakara watched 3 Council frigates get overwhelmed in the first 5 minutes. His heart sank. They couldn't win this. Then the human fleet opened fire. It was like nothing he had ever seen. Human ships didn't use elegant beam weapons. They used railguns that threw solid metal at a fraction of light speed. They used missiles that moved with terrifying intelligence, dodging countermeasures and striking weak points. They used something called nuclear mines that vaporized entire clusters of Skorath fighters. But what shocked him most was the tactics. Human ships worked in groups of 3. One ship would provide covering fire while another closed to point-blank range. The third would hang back, ready to support whoever needed it. They rotated positions constantly, never giving the Skorath a clear target. Human cruiser group. Delta is engaging the enemy flagship. His tactical officer reported. Jakara watched in horror as 3 human ships flew directly toward a massive Skorath biocruiser. The enemy vessel was 10 times their size. It should have torn them apart, but the humans didn't slow down. They accelerated. All 3 ships focused fire on a single point in the enemy's armor. Railgun rounds hammered the same spot over and over. When the armor broke, they launched missiles straight into the wound. The Skorath ship convulsed. Then it exploded from the inside out. "They killed it," someone whispered. "They actually killed one of the big ones." "Look at their crews," another officer said, patching through human communications. Jakara listened in shock. The humans were singing. In the middle of a desperate battle, they were singing war songs over their communication channels. Songs about not giving up, about fighting until the end, about victory or death. "They're insane," his tactical officer said. "No," Jakara said slowly. "They're human." A distress call came from a Vaxian colony ship. It was full of civilians trying to escape. A swarm of Skorath fighters was closing in. "We can't reach them in time," Admiral Kethrall said grimly. "I can." Captain Chen's voice cut in. Her ship, the Indomitable, broke formation and accelerated toward the colony ship. She was too far away. Everyone knew it. But she went anyway. The Skorath fighters reached the colony ship first. They began cutting through the hull. Inside, thousands of Vaxian civilians waited to die. Then the Indomitable arrived. Not alongside the colony ship. Through it. Captain Chen brought her ship so close that her shields overlapped with the colony ship's hull. Any Skorath fighter that tried to attack had to go through a human warship first. The Indomitable's point defense weapons lit up. Thousands of small cannons fired continuously, creating a wall of metal around the colony ship. Skorath fighters exploded by the dozens, but more kept coming. "Captain Chen's shields are failing," Jakara's tactical officer reported. "Hull breaches on multiple decks. She needs to pull back." But Captain Chen didn't pull back. Her ship stayed in position, protecting the colony ship even as Skorath drones began tearing into her hull. "This is Fleet Commander Jakara to Captain Chen," Jakara said. "Fall back. We'll send support." "Negative," Chen's voice came back. She sounded calm despite the chaos around her. "These people need protection now." "We'll hold. You'll be killed." "Maybe," Chen admitted. "But they won't be. Isn't that what matters?" Jakara made 6 months had passed since the Battle of Crucible. Ambassador Jakara stood at the window of his quarters on Concordia Prime, looking out at the stars. The galaxy looked the same from here, but everything had changed. He could see it in the orbital traffic. Human cargo ships moving between stations. Human passenger vessels bringing tourists to see the Council homeworlds. Human construction crews helping to rebuild damaged stations. They were everywhere now, integrated into galactic society as if they had always been there. Jakara checked his datapad. The Council vote was scheduled for today. The final vote, the one that would make humanity's membership permanent and official. He already knew how it would go. After Crucible, after humans had bled alongside Council forces, after they had proven themselves, the outcome was certain. But the formality still mattered. His door chimed. "Come in," he called. High Coordinator Melthos entered, her crystal body glowing softly. "Are you ready for the ceremony?" "I think so," Jakara said. "It feels strange. 6 months ago I was terrified of humans. Now I'm about to welcome them as equals. More than equals in some ways," Melthos said. She pulled up a holographic report. Human medical teams have saved 4 million lives across Council space. Their doctors discovered that human immune systems can synthesize antibodies for diseases that plague our species. They've been sharing the treatment freely. "I heard about that," Jakara said. "I also heard about human agriculture." Melthos nodded. "They're teaching us farming techniques we never imagined. Something called permaculture, the drought on Kelvara 4. Human engineers solved it in 3 weeks. They've been working on it for 50 years without success." "What about the military situation?" Jakara asked. Melthos's glow dimmed slightly. "Mixed. Human tactical doctrine is being adopted across Council fleets. Their training methods are intense but effective. Our soldiers are learning things we never taught them." "Like what?" "How to fight when everything seems hopeless. How to push beyond what seems possible. How to never surrender." Melthos paused. "It's frightening and inspiring at the same time." Jakara understood. Humans had brought more than just technology and medicine. They'd brought a mentality. A way of thinking that said no problem was unsolvable, no enemy was unbeatable, no situation was truly hopeless. "There's more." Melthos continued. She showed him another report. Human entertainment is becoming incredibly popular. Something called jazz music is being played in clubs across Council space. Human literature is being translated into hundreds of languages. Their films are breaking attendance records. "Why?" Jakara asked. "What do they have that we don't?" "Passion," Melthos said simply. "Humans feel everything intensely. They create art about struggle and triumph, about love and loss, about fighting against impossible odds and sometimes winning. It resonates with people. It makes them feel things they've never felt before." Jakara thought about the human singing he'd heard during the battle. Those war songs, full of emotion and determination. It had been terrifying but also strangely beautiful. "Come on," Melthos said. "We don't want to be late." They made their way to the council chamber. It was packed. Every seat was filled. Dozens of observers stood in the galleries. This was history in the making. Admiral Okonkwo stood at the center of the chamber floor. Next to him was Ambassador Kenji Tanaka, humanity's designated council representative. The old admiral had retired from military service to take a diplomatic role. Captain Chen commanded the fleet now. Jakara took his seat and looked around. He caught the eye of Captain Velkoth, the scout who had brought humanity's first message. Velkoth nodded to him. The captain's injuries had healed, but he still walked with a slight limp. High Coordinator Melthos called the session to order. "We gather today to vote on the full admission of humanity into the Galactic Council. Before we vote, does anyone wish to speak?" Several delegates stood. One by one, they shared their experiences with humans over the past 6 months. Illuminae scientists spoke about working with human researchers to develop new power sources. A Krillian merchant discussed profitable trade routes with human colonies. A Vaxian colony administrator talked about human engineers who had rebuilt her entire settlement in weeks. But it was a young Vaxian that caught Jakara's attention. She couldn't have been more than 20 standard years old. She stood nervously. "My name is Telsara," she said. "I was on the colony ship at Crucible. I was 8 years old. I remember being terrified when the Skorath attacked. I remember my mother holding me, telling me it would be okay even though she was crying. Then I remember this huge ship appearing next to us. The Indomitable, a human ship." She paused, gathering her courage. "I watched through a viewport as that ship took hit after hit. I saw pieces of armor flying off. I saw fires burning inside their hull, but they never left. They stayed between us and the enemy. They protected us even though they were dying." Telsara's voice grew stronger. "Later I met Captain Chen. I asked her why she risked her life for us. We were strangers. Her people weren't even part of the council yet. She smiled and said because someone needed help and we were there. That's all. No grand speech. No expectation of reward. Just simple human kindness." She looked around the chamber. "I'm studying xenomedicine now. I want to be a doctor. I want to help people the way humans helped us. If we say no to them today, we're saying no to everything they represent. Courage, compassion, the refusal to give up. I don't think the galaxy can afford to reject that." She sat down. The chamber was silent. High Coordinator Melthos spoke. Thank you, Telsara. Are there any who wish to speak against admission? No one stood. Even the delegates who had opposed humanity 6 months ago remained seated. Crucible had changed everything. Then we vote, Melthos said. All those in favor of granting full council membership to humanity indicate now. Jakara raised his hand. So did Melthos. Around the chamber, hand after hand went up. Or tentacles. Or energy fields. Whatever each species used to vote. The vote is unanimous, Melthos announced. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities therein. Ambassador Tanaka, please step forward. Kenji Tanaka walked to the center of the chamber. He was an older human with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been a diplomat on Earth before being chosen for this role. Melthos handed him a crystal pendant. This marks your authority as a council member. You speak for humanity now. Use that voice wisely, Tanaka bowed. On behalf of humanity, I accept. We come not as conquerors or masters, but as partners and friends. We bring our strength, our knowledge, and our determination. But we also come to learn from you. To grow with you. To build a better galaxy together. The chamber erupted in applause. Even species that didn't normally show emotion were expressing approval in their own ways. Admiral Okonkwo stepped forward. There's one more piece of business, he said. The Council has asked humanity to participate in something called the Guardian Protocol. We'd like to formally accept. Jakara leaned forward. The Guardian Protocol was ancient. A secret defense pact created thousands of years ago, when the first Council species encountered threats from beyond the galaxy. It had been dormant for centuries. The Skora threat remains, Okonkwo continued. They've retreated, but they'll come back. Stronger, more numerous. The Council needs a dedicated defense force. Not for internal security, but for external threats, species that might destroy us all. He pulled up a hologram. It showed plans for massive defense stations, fleets of mixed-species ships, training centers, research facilities. Humanity volunteers to lead this effort, Okonkwo said, not alone. Together with any species that wishes to join us. We'll build a wall around Council space. We'll guard the gates. We'll make sure no threat ever catches us unprepared again. Why would humans take on this burden? A delegate asked. Okonkwo smiled. Because it's what we do. We protect. It's in our nature. Back on Earth we have a saying, those who can, must. We can protect the galaxy. Therefore we must. The vote to include humans in the Guardian Protocol was also unanimous. Later, after the ceremony ended, Jakara found himself in a small bar on the station. It was a human establishment newly opened. Jazz music played from speakers. The sound was strange but pleasant. Admiral Okonkwo sat at the bar nursing something called whiskey. He saw Jakara and waved him over. Ambassador, Okonkwo said warmly. Join me for a drink? Jakara sat down. The bartender, a human woman, brought him something called wine. It was surprisingly good. We did it, Jakara said. You're officially one of us now. Were we ever really separate? Okonkwo asked. We're all living beings trying to survive in a dangerous universe. Seems like we should stick together. I was terrified of you 6 months ago, Jakara admitted. Your fleet, your weapons, your entire demeanor. You seemed like conquerors. And now I understand. You weren't preparing to conquer. You were preparing to survive. To be taken seriously. To never be victims again. Jakara took a sip of wine. I respect that. I wish we had understood sooner. Okonkwo nodded. We could have handled it better too. Showing up with 800 warships wasn't exactly subtle, but we needed you to see us as equals from the start. Respect has to be earned, but strength he